Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to East Central Missouri and the world, and welcome to the James Strong Show podcast number 377. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for making us a part of your day. I appreciate it. This podcast was recorded on the afternoon of Tuesday, October the 1st, from the James Strong Studio in Western St. Charles County. October 1st means baseball either begins or ends. And I mean Major League Baseball. If you're on the upside, it means the real season, not the real season, but the big season has begun. The playoffs start. The teams that have played the 162 games and came in on top. Came out on top. There we go. Once upon a time, that meant the best team in the National League played the best team in the American League in the World Series. The game was on television. It was in the afternoon. Children in school watched the game instead of being in school. It was a big deal. Now, how many teams make the playoffs? 12? I think 12 teams make it into the playoffs. So it's the goal of every Major League Baseball team is to, of course, win the World Series. Sure, they're all going to say that anyway, whether they're genuine in that statement or not. But the ultimate goal is to make the playoffs, because if you make the playoffs, anything could happen. A team could get hot. Basically, if you make the playoffs and you play 4 games over 500 for the next, do the quick math, 15 games, something like that, you win the World Series, okay? So you make the playoffs, good things can happen, okay? Some teams are on the inside, some teams are on the outside. Our St. Louis Cardinals have been on the outside now for quite some time. They haven't won a playoff game in a long, long time. I think they won one game in the COVID era, but I think everybody made the playoffs then. I mean, everybody. So it really didn't count. But the topic of today's podcast is not just sour grapes because the St. Louis local baseball team has done poorly now for 2 straight years. But it's actually the changing sport that was Major League Baseball. Major League Baseball has changed dramatically over the past 10 years. I'm going to say 10 years, maybe a little longer than that, but not much longer than that, okay? Things have just, the game has changed. Some say it's better. Some say it's worse. That's an opinion, and I could see both sides depending on what trips your trigger when it comes to watching baseball. But we're going to talk about the changing sport that was MLB. And I say what was is because it's a totally different game. It's a totally different sport. It's ran by totally different people, and the players are totally different individuals as well. Okay. That's the topic of today's podcast. That's the essay I'm going to speak about today on podcast number 377. But before we get to that, a couple things before we talk about baseball. Number one, this week marks the 50th anniversary of one of the most shocking, bizarre, and terrorizing films ever made, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And I'm talking about the original one, not the one of the 6 remakes that they've had between 1974 and now. Tobe Hooper, who is a wonderful director. That was his first movie, okay? And when we saw that movie, me and friends, at the old, I think it was a St. Anne four-screen drive-in in 1974 when it came out, it was truly terrifying. I don't mean just kind of scary. And I don't mean just slasher because of blood and guts. It was truly a terrifying film. And even to this day, if you watch it today, some would say it's laughable because it's not like the current slasher films they have now. But it's different. Saying the Texas Chainsaw Massacre is dated and not as good as the current films is like saying Hitchcock's North by Northwest is not as good as something made last week. They're different movies. They were made in a different time with different actors for a different audience, different. So you can't compare something from way back then to today. But if you get a chance to watch the film ever, it's terrifying, it's scary, it's bizarre, and it stars really nobody. None of the actors really made it big, okay? So the actual stars was the film itself. In fact, the only person of notoriety, I think, is John Larroquette is in that movie, kind of. He's the narrator who narrates the opening scroll as the movie begins. Other than that, and of course, Tobe Hooper became a very prominent director. But other than that, nobody was really popular after that film. It was made with a bunch of nobodies for almost no money, and it made tons of dough, which is one of the reasons why Tobe Hooper got a lot of other opportunities to make films. So happy birthday to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. You're 50 years old today. What else? Clickbait. Oh, those of us who spend time on the internet, and that's most of us, I think, nowadays. I've never understood this. I'm not a marketing guy. I've talked to marketing folks, and they've explained what goes on here, sometimes kind of, but I've never gotten an answer that either maybe I haven't understood it, maybe I'm not bright enough to understand what I'm being told. I don't know. But I don't understand why so many dollars go into internet advertising. Now, I do understand that people look at the internet all the time. In fact, I'm looking at this Texas Chainsaw Massacre all the time. And right next to it is a ad for the American plastic makers, okay? Whatever that means, okay? I saw it, and it's fine. But what gets to me is when you see something that comes up on your screen. And my Microsoft Outlook, my email, is this way. It's segregated into two different accounts. The focused emails, which are the ones that are really important, and then the not so focused ones, the other emails, okay? And the other emails start off with ads, but they're not your normal ads. They show up in your list of what do I want to say? They show up in your list of emails to open. And as it's going, when you go to click on your first email, something changes and you click on the ad. Now, you never intended to click on the ad, ever, but you do. And these folks are paid on clicks. So I have to ask this question again. I've asked it before. I'll probably ask it again because I just don't get it. If the advertisers pay based on clicks, but the website tricks you into clicking on something, so when it opens, you're angry at it, a best case scenario is you close it and never look at it. A worst case scenario is you do see it, and it makes you mad. Somebody's going to have to explain to me, somebody smarter than me is going to have to explain to me why that's a good business model. But I digress. As we speak right now, this is 4:14 Central Daylight Time on Tuesday, the 1st of October. Hopefully, this turns into a non-story. But as this podcast is being recorded, Iranian missiles were launched on Tel Aviv. And these weren't from proxies, Hamas, Hezbollah, or the Houthis in Yemen. They weren't launched by Iranian proxies. They were launched by Iran on Tel Aviv, the capital. And Iran says, yep, it was us. We're going to do it. And if you retaliate, you think this was a big deal, we're going to retaliate even bigger. What do you think Israel's going to do? As of right now, the reports are that none of those missiles hit. They were all shot down. Okay. The United States has ships. I think the UK has ships also in the Mediterranean that are helping to shoot these missiles down as they come out of Iran. So this story is developing. But if you think that Israel is going to say, well, we're afraid and we're not going to do it, think again. Israel has, according to many, I read an article this week. Let's just start with that. It was by an English army general, and he basically says that Israel has the best army in the world right now. And he compared it to the semi-successes, semi-failures, however you want to regard them, of the U.S., UK, world forces that were in Afghanistan or Iraq, and the successes or lack of success that they had. Whereas the Israeli army has success after success after success. If they go after something, they succeed. And basically it's for two reasons, according to this British general, and I totally agree with both of them. Number one, the difference between Israel and the U.S. and the UK and Iraq and Afghanistan, our countries were never in danger. With Israel, if they lose, they will be taken over and cease to exist as a country. So there's a real threat there, not a perceived threat, not a, hey, if this happens, then that could happen, then that could happen, then that could happen, and then maybe we need to pay attention. It's a real live threat. Nobody shoots missiles at Portland, okay? It hasn't happened. Maybe since World War II. But it just doesn't happen. Nobody that's alive now, very few people, if any, that are alive now, can remember the United States being attacked by another country, okay? Israel is attacked almost daily with missiles from Gaza or Yemen or Lebanon by Hezbollah, not by the Lebanese army, or now by Iraq. Number two, collateral damage. Israel just accepts it. Armies of the West don't. Basically, Israel says, look, you put missile bases in a kindergarten, okay, kindergarten kids are going to die. That's on you, not on us. You shouldn't put a missile base in a kindergarten or a hospital or a daycare center or an old folks home. So Israel bombs daycare centers. They bomb kindergartens. They bomb hospitals because that's where the enemy puts their weapons or their soldiers or their intelligence agents. They hide behind the skirts of women and under the desks of children. Israel does not care about collateral damage. And maybe that's wrong. I wouldn't say they don't care, but they don't take it so much into consideration. Sucks to be you if you're next to the terrorists, because we're going to kill you. By the way, this is not a war against Lebanon per se. It's a war against Hezbollah, because the Lebanese army was on the border. And as the Israeli army came through, the Lebanese army kind of just got out of the way. They didn't fire at the Israelis. The Israelis didn't fire at the Lebanese army. So if Hezbollah is defeated, perhaps Lebanon can take over their own country again. But again, we'll see. We'll see. But the biggest deal about this is, did you read the story? And this was a CNN article. And Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, remember that guy? He was the prime minister, president, I believe, of Iran once upon a time. And he made an amazing claim yesterday with an interview with CNN in Turkey. Ahmadinejad basically said that Tehran established a unit meant to thwart operations of Israel's Mossad. And then it didn't work. And the reason it didn't work is because it became very clear to them after the fact that the man who was heading this up was a Mossad agent. He was a spy. The guy, they said, okay, we're going to do this deal to infiltrate Mossad, okay? We're going to put you in charge. The guy was a Mossad agent. In fact, Ahmadinejad said that in 2021 it became clear to them that most of the senior personnel in the country whose job it was to deal with Israel's intelligence operations, Mossad agents, there were a bunch of them, not just the main guy in charge, but there were a bunch of them in charge. I mean, that's huge, because if you think about it, here's a deal where we're going to go ahead and wipe out the enemy. We're going to put you in charge. and you're a spy. They said they also took all the Iranian nuclear weapon secrets with them. Now, again, if this didn't happen, let's say Ahmadinejad is making this up. I don't know why he would, but if he were, This is a huge deal. In fact, he says, Ahmadinejad said Israel organized complex operations inside Iran. They could easily obtain information. In Iran, they're still silent about this. The man who's in charge of the unit in Iran against Israel was an Israeli agent. So basically, this is the ex-president of Iran saying, hey, you're not hearing anything out of these guys because they're kind of embarrassed because that's what happened. They were also able to steal Iranian nuclear documents in 2018. That's when Ahmadinejad was in charge, I believe. Okay. The Mossad, this is in quotes from Ahmadinejad, the Mossad has infiltrated many government departments in the last 10 years to such a degree that all the country's top officials should fear for their lives. Wow. And these are the guys you want to mess with? I don't know that I would. Glad they're on our side. Last thing I want to get into, and this is related, it has with the changing sport that was Major League Baseball. Pete Rose died yesterday, and he was 83. Nobody has ever had more hits than Pete Rose, and he's not in the Hall of Fame because he bet on baseball. Now, there are those that say, now, first of all, I believe that Pete Rose should be in the Hall of Fame. Just like Barry Bonds, just like Mark McGwire, just like maybe Sammy Sosa. You have to run his numbers. Just like a lot of players should be in the Hall of Fame. They use steroids. They bet on baseball, et cetera, et cetera. They should still be in the Hall of Fame, in my opinion. A lot of people say that Pete Rose only bet on his own teams to win, which, by the way, is true. When he was manager, he bet on only his own teams to win. But the caveat to that is if he bet on his team to win on a Wednesday, but he didn't bet on a Monday or a Tuesday, the inference was for the odds makers is that, well, he's not really interested in winning those games. He's saving his bullpen for the game he thinks he's going to win. He's resting his best players so he can play them on the games he wants to win. So to say that Pete Rose only bet on baseball to win may or may not be 100% accurate, if you know what I mean. Bottom line is, if betting on baseball is so horrible, why are some of the biggest sponsors, FanDuel, DraftKings, the casinos here around the area? In fact, the baseball games are broadcast on Bally Sports, all right? What does Bally Sports do? Oh, yeah, they're a gambling outfit. So baseball is sponsored in big part by gambling. But you don't let Pete Rose in because he bet on baseball? Think about that. The changing sport that was Major League Baseball. I've been a baseball fan all my life. Well, maybe not when I was 2, but shortly after that. I loved playing baseball. I played it as a kid in the street. I played organized ball as a boy. We played pickup games. When we didn't have enough for a real game, we played a game called fuzzball. And really all you needed were 3 players. And you could play one-on-one. One guy pitches, one guy catches, one guy hits. The catcher calls balls and strikes. You play with a corkball bat and a tennis ball. You pitch from 50 feet away. The schoolyard where we played, 150 feet to straightaway center was the fence. You hit over the fence, you got a home run. You hit it past the pitcher, you got a single. Okay? Pretty basic game, but you could play with 3 people, and it was fun. Lots of fun. We played hours and hours at a time. Played lots of baseball as a kid. Now, I'm not going to play the old man and say, you never see kids playing baseball anymore, even though you rarely do. But things have just changed. A whole lot of things have changed, okay? The whole FanDuel thing, DraftKings, where we don't bet on baseball, but we take hundreds of millions of dollars from betting organizations to sponsor baseball. It doesn't make sense to me. And people will say, well, you know what? Baseball's a business. You got to understand that, Strong. It's a game. Yeah, but it's a business. You got to understand it's a business. And that's true. It certainly is a business. In fact, it's so much a business that I was on the Cardinal website yesterday taking a look at things, and I noticed an ad. And you have the fill in the blank, the official fill in the blank of Major League Baseball. You name it, it's got it. Sure, this was on the Cardinal website, so this wasn't something off of the Onion. You're on the Cardinal website, the ad pops up, okay? Charlotte's Web, the official CBD of Major League Baseball. I understand CBD is legal, okay? But the official CBD of Major League Baseball, it's a legal drug. Whether you're a fan of it or not, doesn't matter. But the bottom line is, pardon my English, but Major League Baseball has hoarded themselves out. Whereas if you've got money and you want to put it in, you can be the official fill in the blank. You can be the official tampon of Major League Baseball if you want to, if you pay them enough money. You can be the official, you name it. You could be the official anything of Major League Baseball if you want to be. Because all you got to do is give them some money, okay? And that's what it's all about, which is fine until you come to the point where your team stinks. Now, here's the truth about any sport, and that includes baseball. At the end of the year, there's one champion, okay? And once upon a time, I think 69 was the first year they went into divisional play. I think maybe it was 70. I forget. 69 or 70. Cardinals lost the World Series against Detroit in 68. They won it against Boston in 67. But after that, I think it was divisional play. Okay. So you had more than one champion in each league. Then there was a playoff system. Okay. So now there's not so much two champions that play. There's now 6 champions. And if you include the wild card guys, there's 12 champions, okay? So it's almost like winning is just kind of winning is good. If you win your division, that's good. If you just get in the playoffs, that's good because anything can happen, and that's true. Lots of wild card teams have won the World Series. I think last time the Cardinals won the World Series, they were a wild card team, if I'm not mistaken. So it can happen. It happens all the time. But what I'm getting at is you're always going to have losers. You have winners and you have losers, okay? Everybody can't win. At the end of the day, when a team plays, one of them wins, one of them loses, okay? You're never going to have more winners than losers. That's just how the game works, okay? But when you get the great players who make lots of money. In fact, the great players have made lots of money, not forever, but for a long time, the great players have made lots of money, okay? But now the not so great players make lots of money. I mean, lots of money. I mean, if you're I'll give you an example. Cardinals have a pitcher, Miles Michaelis, has an ERA of about 5.5, okay? But he's out there. He throws a lot of innings. He gets the job done. Okay. He's going to make $18.5 million next year. And this is a guy whose ERA is 5.5. Once upon a time, a 5.5 in ERA just got you sent down to the minor leagues. Not an $18.5 million contract. But again, the game has changed. Things are different. Okay. I understand it costs a lot of money to run a major league ball team. So you got to do things like, well, let the gambling people in. Let the CBD people in, okay? Just take more money. I get it. I understand it. That's how it works. It's a business. But here's where it changes. It's a business like any other, right? And let's compare it to an automobile business, okay? How many automobile companies are out there? Golly, I don't know. There's GM, there's Ford, there's Chrysler, there's Hyundai, there's Toyota, there's Honda, there's Nissan, there's Volkswagen, and I could go on and on and on. Lots of choices with cars, okay? Lots and lots of choices with cars. They're a business, and they're in it to make money. And the problem with a business like that is once the customer has a bad experience, and they go away, it's very difficult to get them back. And once upon a time, they say, look, when I was a 16-year-old, basically you drove a Chevy or you drove a GM, you drove a Ford, or you drove a Chrysler product. There were a handful of people who drove the Japanese cars or maybe an occasional German car. But basically, the big three ruled the roost. You were a Chevy guy, a Ford guy, a Chrysler guy, okay? And Chrysler could be Dodge, Chevy could be GMC or Pontiac, sure. I get that. But you know what I'm saying, okay? That's not the case anymore. But here's the thing. If you bought a Chevrolet brand new and it was a lemon and you took it back to the dealer and the dealer says, yeah, well, you know what? We made real good cars for a long, long time. And now we just don't have the money. So be patient with us because in a couple of years, we're going to start making good cars again. In the meantime, I still want you to buy my stuff. Have faith in us. Because maybe this one won't be good. Maybe the next one you buy won't be good. But I bet you by the time you buy your third car from us again, look, here's our game plan. It's going to be a good car. Would you buy that car? No, you wouldn't do it. You just wouldn't do it because you know what? You're not treating me with respect. You're just trying to make money for yourself. You don't care about your product. So I'm going to buy something else. And that's the way people work. That's the way people are. Okay. If baseball is a business and it's not a sport, consider this, dear listeners. Last year, and I'll use the Cardinals as an example, but there's a lot of teams who fit this same mold. The Cardinals, the Pirates, the Reds, the Oakland A's, who really don't have a home. They're not playing in Oakland anymore. They think they might be playing in Las Vegas, but there's no firm plan to build that stadium. In the meantime, they're going to play in a minor league stadium in Sacramento, I believe, for the foreseeable future. But there's all kinds of other teams that are just in markets that just don't support teams. Cleveland's doing real well, so they're doing okay. Minnesota, teams that are in smaller markets, okay, they just don't have the money. I mean, the Los Angeles Dodgers have more money coming in from their television revenue than the Cardinals have, period. Same with the Yankees and the Mets. These teams are so cash rich because they have such a big fan base. Okay. The Cardinals, the Royals, the Reds, the Pirates are never going to have the income that the Cardinals have. I'm sorry, that the Dodgers have or that the Yankees have. Now, does that mean they can't have a good product? No, you still can. Case in point, Cleveland has a fantastic team this year. Kansas City has a fantastic team this year, and they've done it with younger players, and they've done things in a different way, okay? But if you say that it's a sport, if you say that it's a business and not a sport, you've got to remember that brand loyalty only goes so far. And that doesn't mean that, well, the Cardinals aren't doing what they need to be doing, so I'm going to go ahead and just be a Royals fan instead. It's not what that means. Because if you live in a city and want to see a team, you got to support the team that's in your city because you're not going to drive 200 miles to see another team. Most people won't anyway. Not enough to matter will. But what will happen is, you know what? Baseball just doesn't compete with the baseball teams. And you'll say, well, Strong, what other sports are they playing? They're not playing football. Well, at the end they are, but basketball's not going on. Hockey's not going on. If it's July and you want to see a sporting event, you got to see baseball. Yeah, I know St. Louis has a hockey team, or not a hockey team, but a soccer team now. But you don't understand what I'm trying to say. But there's other things to do. There's other ways to spend your money. And that's what Major League Baseball doesn't understand. And this all started, in my opinion, with the whole analytics. Okay, now analytics have been around for a long, long time. One of the reasons that Whitey Herzog was so successful as a manager is he used analytics. Now, what do I mean by that? Analytics are, okay, how did this guy do against left-handed pitchers? Or how did this guy do against left-handed pitchers who threw primarily fastballs? Or how did this guy do against this particular left-handed pitcher? Whitey Herzog had file cabinets full of different players and how they did against different people. Before the days of computers, he did it all by hand. Tony La Russa did that. Dave Duncan did that. But here's the difference. That was used as a tool. That was used as one of the weapons in the arsenal, one of the tools in the belt. Use whatever scenario you want to use. So that was part of the deal. In the 1990s, I'm going to say, no, 2000s, not too terribly long ago, when Billy Beane took over the Oakland A's. The Oakland A's had no money. Their owner was horrible. They basically told Billy Beane, look, we're giving you no money. Do what you can to win as many games as possible. And he hired a analytics guy. In fact, watch the movie Moneyball. It's a good movie with Brad Pitt. But it had everything to do about analytics. And the big deal for Billy Beane was getting people on base. Getting on base was just as important as getting a hit. So a walk is as good as a hit. So he hired guys or traded for guys who walked a lot. Okay, so you hit 220, but you walked 100 times in a year. That means your on-base percentage is higher. And he did pretty decent with that model. So they went all in. What's the biggest thing? The biggest problem that most players have, the big pitch they have trouble hitting? Fastballs. Not 90-mile-an-hour fastballs. 98, 99, 100, 101, 102 mile-an-hour fastballs. So you've got to have pitchers who throw that hard. And when you throw that hard, there's more risk of injury. Because to throw that hard, you have to condition yourself in a different way. And you ramp it up 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 until it breaks. So then you get the guy who can throw 100 miles an hour. You sign him to a $250 million contract, and then he throws his arm out. So now what do? You still got to pay this guy, but you still got to field a team. Same thing with batters and players. Right now, everyone wants to see home runs. If you remember, once upon a time in the 70s into the 80s, there was a guy named Dave Kingman. He played for a lot of different teams. And Dave Kingman was a big guy. I want to say he was like 6'7", 6'8". They called him Kong, as in King Kong. But Dave Kingman had a problem. He would hit 30, 40 home runs every year and hit about 203, 205, 206, 210 every year. And he couldn't play defense. So they just thought, this guy, yeah, he can hit a lot of home runs, but he's not a good fielder, and he doesn't hit for average. He strikes out all the time. So he had a decent career, but he never stuck on anywhere for any time because he was a one-dimensional player. Friends, you got a guy who can hit 40 home runs and bat 205 now? He makes $25 million a year because that's what they want. And it's a new stat called OPS, on base plus slugging. Nobody cares about batting average anymore. Nobody cares. Now, to me, it was the Triple Crown: batting average, home runs, RBIs. And maybe the most important was RBIs. Second most important to me was always average because, yeah, getting on base is important, okay? But if there's a man on second base and you walk, now you got a man on first and second. The next guy's got to do something. If there's a man on second base and you get a hit, usually he scores, especially if there's two outs. Batting average doesn't mean much. Home runs mean everything. RBIs don't mean much. Now you think to yourself, yeah, strong RBIs are still important. No, to the Moneyball people, to the analytics people, RBIs are not a big deal because RBIs, so a guy gets up and there's nobody on base. They can't control that. Are you kidding? Are you kidding me? Driving in runs is everything. The Oakland A's in the 70s when they won their first, second, and third World Series. The last year the Oakland A's won their World Series, I think the highest guy on that team was Sal Bando. Bert Campaneris. He hit 270-something, okay? The rest of these guys were hitting 230 and 240 every year with 70, 80, 90, and 100 RBIs. You look at the box score. Okay, the A's scored 6 runs on 7 hits. They hit when it was necessary. Those statistics aren't even followed. They're not considered. They're not even part of the equation. It's all spin rate on your pitch, how fast you can throw it, your swing and miss rate. Now, I understand this whole swing and miss thing, but what would happen if you had a pitcher who could just get lots of ground balls? Okay? 2 things are going to happen. First of all, when you go for swing and miss, you're probably going to throw at least 3 pitches to each batter, probably closer to 6 or 8 pitches to each batter. And by the time the 5th or 6th inning comes, you got 100 pitches and they sit you down because you've thrown enough. Because when you throw that hard, you're going to throw your arm out. And we're paying you $18, $25 million a year. We can't have you go bad, so we pull you. And we put it in a reliever, okay? There were 15 complete games. 15 complete games in Major League Baseball this year. 15 in Major League Baseball. Let me look at a quick stat. I can't see it from here. That's all right. Bob Gibson threw 27 complete games in 1968. So Bob Gibson, one guy, threw almost twice as many complete games as all of Major League Baseball. People don't do that anymore. They just don't. Now, I get it. Gibson was an anomaly. He's a Hall of Famer. He's, in my opinion, the best player in baseball. The only player they ever changed the rules because he was too good, okay? They lowered the mound because he was too good. He had a 1.12 ERA, and they said, look, we got to put some more offense into the game, so lower the mound. Can't have Gibson doing this. But that's the other way the game has changed. It's basically, it's a video game. Let's look at the numbers. Let's look at the stats. Let's look at the OPS. Let's look at what about the days where here's a guy who gets up to bat and he gets a base hit. Then he steals second base. Then the next guy bunts him over. He's on third base. The next guy hits a fly ball and scores him. You've scored a run. Why don't they do that nowadays? I will tell you why. Because getting base hits adds to your batting average. If you're looking to get a big contract, batting average doesn't matter. If you steal second base, it doesn't matter if you steal base. Stolen bases are not important. No guys who are stolen base kings get the big contracts. So that's why they don't steal bases. Sacrifice bunt to get the guy over to third. That doesn't add anything to your batting average or to your OPS. So nobody wants to sacrifice. And driving in the run with a sacrifice fly, RBIs don't matter either. So it's not so much a team sport anymore. It's an individual sport. Because 6 years after you go into the major league, after you get into the major leagues, I think it's 6 years, you're under team control. And I think the first 4 years, you got to take what they give you. The next 2 years, I think you can go to arbitration and get paid more depending on what the arbitrator says. But in that 7th year, you're a free agent. And then you can make the money. And the dirty little secret is, if a player doesn't come up till he's 25, he's 31 by the time he's a free agent. 31, 32, he's past his prime, he doesn't make the big money. So players want to make a splash quick. So they make the money quick, okay? Is this a bad thing? I don't know. It isn't, it isn't. I can understand why they want to make the money. I mean, everybody's in it to make money. But baseball has turned into a big yawn fest to me when it comes to the way players play. Some of the best pitchers, arguably, Greg Maddux was one of the best pitchers ever. He was a control pitcher. Catfish Hunter, one of the best pitchers ever, control pitcher. Catfish Hunter, I've heard say that Catfish Hunter or Greg Maddux, and they're both in the Hall of Fame, by the way. Catfish Hunter and Greg Maddux would not get a second look by a scout nowadays. Now, you hear all the time, well, back then, Strong, they just played against plumbers. These are real athletes. Really? Real athletes who spend a third of the season on the disabled list. I don't think they're real athletes. No better than the other guys. People don't go to a baseball game to see athletic specimens. They go to see ball players. And once upon a time, if you want to get better at hitting, you spend time in the batting cage, not on the weight bench. If you want to get better at fielding, you spend time taking ground balls, not playing some stupid eye-hand coordination drill, okay? If you want to worry about how to steal more bases, you watch films of the pitchers that you're against so you can go ahead and see when he makes his move so you can make your move. Basically, you go to ball practice and you practice. You hit, you field, you run, you throw. How many players... Nolan Gorman, who's one of the Cardinals' prospects, has missed time every year he's been around because he has a bad back. The guy's 24. He's got a bad back? How can you have a bad back at 24? I don't get it. That's the old joke. How long has his back been bothering him? About a week back. That's an old sports joke, but you get what I'm saying. Ball players are different now than they were before. To me, baseball is not as entertaining as it was before. Cardinals have a pitcher named Sonny Gray. And Sonny Gray was given big-time acclimates by the manager because Sonny will tell me when he's had enough and he needs to be taken out of the game. So it'll be into the fourth or fifth inning, and Sonny will say, yep, I've had enough. You can take me out now, Coach. And Coach takes him out. Now, is that because Sonny just wants to go ahead and make sure he can pitch until he's 41 years old and make more money? I don't know if I'd want that player on my team. What do you mean you're tired and you can't get any more people out? I appreciate your honesty, but why don't you suck it up and get one or two more guys out, and then we'll take you out next inning. Or at least tell me that you can do it anyway. Have a little bit of intestinal fortitude. So what do you think? Major League Baseball is a changed sport. Is it changed for the better? Is it changed for the worse? Well, attendance this year across the major leagues was, in fact, the trend is up. More people are watching baseball games, okay? Most teams, not all, but most teams, especially the big market teams, are making more money. But here's the thing. When you have a handful of teams winning all the games, and then you got the rest who just lose all the games, pretty soon you're going to have just a handful of teams that anyone's going to go see. And the rest of them will just be the Austin P, the Murray State of Major League Baseball. Well, that's it. I'm done. JamesStrongShow@hotmail.com. That's my email address. Send me an email. I love to read them. I love to respond. And always interested in what you have to say, dear listener. That's it. We're done. Until next time, this is James Strong saying adios.